Today, India and the EU have finally sealed a long-pending free trade agreement, a deal that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has described as a historic milestone, something that opens a new chapter in India's economic engagement with European countries. Now, the agreement promises easier market access, lower tariffs and deeper cooperation across sectors from pharma to medical devices to cars, wine, textiles and services. Prime Minister Modi has framed the pact as a win-win that boosts Indian exports, attracts investments and also strengthens India's position in an uncertain global trade environment, especially as protectionist pressures rise elsewhere. We're joined by Chetan Agarwal, who's a public policy expert. He studied in Harvard Kennedy School. He also has extensive experience covering the government in government work. And we're also joined by Manjeev Puri, former ambassador. Thank you both of you for joining me on this broadcast. Before I get to you with questions, let's take a look at some reactions.
Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we did it. We delivered the mother of all deals.
With these words, the European Commission President confirmed the conclusion of a landmark Indo-European Union trade agreement ending nearly 2 decades of negotiations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi termed it as a historic agreement.
आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। यह एफटीए भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के बीच इन्वेस्टमेंट को बूस्ट करेगा, नई इनोवेशन पार्टनरशिप बनाएगा और वैश्विक स्तर पर सप्लाई चेन को मजबूत करेगा। यानी यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है।
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen hailed the deal as a landmark in global economic cooperation, proof that open markets still matter.
India has risen, and Europe is truly glad about it. Because when India succeeds, the world is more stable, more prosperous, and more secure. And we all benefit. We are creating a market of 2 billion people, and this is the tale of two giants.
Under the agreement, tariffs on goods worth 96.6% of total India-European Union trade will either be cut or eliminated, significantly boosting market access on both sides. European exporters are expected to save about 4 billion euros annually from reduced duties. The key provisions include India to slash import duties on many European cars from as high as 110% to around 10% over a phased period. Steep tariffs on wines and spirits to be drastically reduced, widening consumer choice. Textiles, machinery, chemicals and gems. Substantial tariff cuts opening Indian and European markets for these major sectors.
We are also very pleased to have concluded negotiations on, as Ms. von der Leyen herself has articulated, the mother of all deals, a free trade agreement which covers 25% of global trade.
India refused any duty concessions on dairy imports, explicitly including cheese, along with cereals and soya meal to protect local farmers. High pre-existing tariffs, up to about 150% on some items like cheese, remain unchanged, making these as non-negotiable red lines. The European Union similarly shielded its beef, poultry, sugar and meat sectors.
It has taken 2 decades, 18 years to negotiate this deal, which has seen several twists and turns. But for the consumers and for businesses and traders, this is a welcome news both in India and the 27-member EU bloc. But now, this entire agreement between India and EU will travel to Brussels to meet the scrutiny and the scrubbing of the EU Parliament. So the consumers and the businesses will have to wait a little more longer before they can actually enjoy the fruits of the hectic negotiations and parleys that have happened over the last 2 decades. the ratification could take 6 months to a year, with Piyush Goyal, India's Commerce Minister, confirming that they will be trying their best to in fact implement this deal in the year 2026 itself. Reporting for NDTV, this is Aditya Raj Kaul.
Well, there's so much to unpack here. Ambassador Puri, people are saying that there is economics in this, but there's also a lot of geopolitics, because the timing of this is very interesting. Everyone is talking about this rules-based order. There are also these anxieties over global trade disruptions. What is the larger message that India is trying to send out by announcing this?
Thank you very much, Vasudha. Vasudha, look, for someone like me who's worked at the European Union, this is a very welcome day, a red letter. The European Union is India's largest trading partner. We are also very large trading partners of theirs. So there is shared prosperity. That's one thing. The important signals, that's what I see in this deal, because it will still take a year of legal scrubbing, parliamentary approvals, etc. to come through. What are the big signals? One, the European Union, which is the second largest economy in the world, people who've been there, done everything, they have recognized now officially that India is an emerged economy, not just a middle power, an emerged economy, a country which can be trusted, which is a trusted partner, and let's take things forward with this good growing economy. This is a signal to European business. Invest in India. India is a good place to invest. There's not just the domestic market, but it's also lowering its protectionist ways of doing things of the past. It'll be open to supply chains being developed. It'll be open to lots of other possibilities.
Right.
These are the other signals. Talking about geopolitics. Well, look, we never asked the Atlantic Ocean to upset the apple cart. They did it. People have to react. The Europeans have reacted. They've understood that multi-alignment is necessary for them. They went with the Mercosur. They've now gone to India, not just the Americas and China. They're looking at India and they're recognizing it. As far as we were concerned, yes, multi-alignment has always been important for us, but these pushes and nudges, they are important in life, in situations, and also in geopolitics. And so the signal that we give is there's shared prosperity for the world's two largest democracies. The two of the larger, five largest.
In fact, the Prime Minister called this a double engine for the entire world. Chetan, let's just break it down for our viewers. Who gains first? Is it the exporters, or is it the consumer that's gaining the most? And what are the sectors that are likely to benefit from this deal?
Thank you, Vasudha. I think, as the Prime Minister and everybody has said, this is the mother of all deals. In my view, it is the largest deal that India has ever signed in FTAs. And it is also a template for deals that we should have with any developed country or developed economy in the world. This is definitely that. As far as advantages are concerned, it benefits almost everybody. It benefits exporters, it benefits manufacturers, it benefits labor, it benefits farmers, and most importantly, it benefits the consumer. We get 99.5% of trade value as far as market access is concerned. It opens up about $75 billion of trade in EU. It also, 9,425 tariff lines are expected to be eliminated. This is a great win. The second thing, and something which is extremely important to India, is service mobility. So that is something that is happening in this deal, where essentially Indian talent will be able to work in EU much easily compared to the past. As it is, there are global headwinds against, migration, etc. But this deal creates some sort of a pathway where it balances the domestic compulsions of European countries and also Indian need and the world's need for Indian talent. Right. For example, we have something on social security for anybody who's working in the EU, Indians working in the EU. We're going to have a deal, just like it's not worked out to the same extent of detail as it was for the UK, but it's expected to happen over the next 5 years. Students who go to the EU will get a minimum of 9 months of work permission over there. That's something great. And as far as sectors are concerned, labor-intensive sectors like textiles, leather, sports benefit, marine seafood exports benefit, and most importantly, it creates a pipeline for India to be part of European supply lines as far as electronics is concerned, semiconductors is concerned, capital industry.
But Chetan, will this also help us offset some of the impact of the tariffs, especially on labor-intensive sectors like garments, or for that matter, jewelry, something that we've been discussing in the context of tariffs?
Yes, definitely. It will, as it is with CBAM coming in EU and tariffs in US, Indian exporters were gradually facing challenges. And once this deal is ratified and passed and signed and concluded, we shall find that Indian export will benefit. Over the medium and long term, huge benefits are expected. In the short term, it will take time, obviously, because the EU has a very different format of a negotiation as compared to other countries.
Right. Ambassador Puri, when I was reading up on this, it just seems so difficult with this carbon tax and intellectual property. Where are the areas that could become potential flashpoints once the agreement moves from paper to practice?
Thank you. And Chetan, thank you for bringing up that word which nobody raises, CBAM. While this agreement has, in a sense, flattened the advantage that least developed countries, and in our case, Bangladesh, had vis-a-vis India on textiles exports, for example, the so-called labor-intensive areas. The fact is that we as a large economy would have to now take care of the European Union's legal requirements of carbon, the embedded carbon in this, and that hasn't been touched. And, it is a very ticklish issue. It's a very problematic issue. But the way I look at all of this is signaling. It's signaling that India and Europe want to enhance business ties. They want to enhance, through the business ties, they're also giving political signals to the world. We are looking at multi-alignment. India has always looked for it, but the Europeans now believe that India, and they believe for a long time, but now they put it down on paper. They believe India is a trusted partner with whom they need to do business for their own interests. And this is perhaps the most important element for India, the pursuit of Viksit Bharat, European technology and money becoming available because they feel more certain and more confident. For us, the access to the European market somewhat eased a little bit in terms of young professionals who are skilled, who can go there and work, and so on and so forth. All of this will have to be worked out. But the signaling is particularly positive and particularly good.
Okay. Chetan, there are also people who say that this is fine, the fact that we have free trade agreements with countries like, UK, Oman and others. It's just fine, and now this EU is a big thing, but then you need a big country like China, US also signing a deal with you because of the trade surplus issue. Explain to us, how does that work? Is that more significant than this, or does this stand on its own?
Vasudha, thank you so much for raising this. As Ambassador Puri mentioned, this is a signal. And I would argue that right now it's a signal, tomorrow it will be a reality. And this is something, this covers basically, why do we have this deal? Basically, an FTA for India should be done on 3 points, in my view. The first is, do not sign a deal with somebody with whom you compete, especially on manufacturing, which is what we had done in the past. So this, corrects that. The second is, it should provide service and mobility. Again, this does that. And this is something that has been happening with any trade deal that has been signed by the Modi government. That is very important. The 8 deals that have been signed, the 6 deals that have been signed, and the 5 deals that have been signed this year, including this. The last is that it should not allow technical standards to become exclusionary. So, if you mention CBAM, if you mention phytosanitary standards, etc., it should basically not become an excuse to get rid of Indian exporters from entering those markets. This is something that is happening in ASEAN, Japan, Korea. It will not happen in the EU because of, various safeguards that have been put into place. So on all these, it is important. As far as China is concerned, I think a great decision was taken when we did not sign the RCEP, which was backdoor FTA with China. In fact, this is a great FTA. It is not one, it is 27 FTAs which have been, inked today. That is something that is very important. And 27 developed countries. We need to sign agreements with developed countries where India is competitive. And I think Mr. Puri will also know this, that out of the 5 I's, we effectively now will have FTAs with 4 of them. 1 is left, and I am confident that too shall happen very soon, which is the US.
Right. I'm running out of time. Ambassador Puri, how is US likely to react to this? Because we have the Greenland thing that's being raked up by President Trump, and then we also have a pending FTA with the US. How is America going to react to this?
So one reaction we've had, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sort of likening this to helping Russia. But, look, the Americans are also playing politics. Trade and the flag are 2 sides of the same coin. They're playing politics. They will also look at what is going on. Are we interested in a trade deal with them? The answer is yes. But do we, as the European Union, also realize that, look, for being able to do a trade deal which remains in your interest and is not a given in that sense of the term, you have to have national capacities and abilities to do so, which requires multi-alignment. You would raise this question about China and so on and so forth. Look, all of this is particularly important for us because think about something else. And let me leave this interesting thought with all of you. What if the Americans and the Chinese putting up together on a deal? You know, these are all factors which are important. So you need this Atmanirbhar, self-reliance, but you also need friends all around. So you need to build up this kind of multi-alignment. And that's what we are doing. I am glad that the European Union, which thought it knew everything before, also thinks that it should do multi-alignment and that we are a trusted partner with whom they should do that.
Right. Last question to you, Chetan, your closing remarks, and also the fact that I'm very curious to know how are Indian manufacturers going to react to this, because there is a sense that India has been very careful when it comes to sectors like auto and agriculture. And today, the Prime Minister specifically addressed the business community. What do you think they would be thinking? Do you think the country has done enough to protect the domestic industry?
Thanks, Vasudha, for that. Definitely, any trade deal involves give and take. And my view is that India has given the minimum possible. And without this, no deal would have been possible with the EU. We gain a lot. If I was a manufacturer today, I think I have a great, there are great opportunities ahead. The only thing that I need to focus on now is quality, quality, and quality. Get my standards up, get my productivity up, and just ensure that I am able to make the sort of products that a European consumer buys and a European regulator allows into their country.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Puri. Thank you, Chetan, for joining me. This is a trade agreement that's come wrapped in optimism, ambition, and like Ambassador Puri said, a lot of signaling, but like most big trade deals, what it becomes, does it become a genuine growth engine or does it become a contested compromise? All of that will be tracked and seen very carefully.